Hey everybody, this is Justin with Alternative Drummer. Today I've got a really fun interview for you guys. I'm going to be talking to Alain Levesque. Now, Alain, you may have seen in some of the Simmons promotional videos for the SD2000 when it came out back in 2017, and some other videos as well on the Simmons channel. Also on his personal YouTube channel where he demos some Simmons products and some vintage gear and just really makes some cool stuff. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk to Alain is basically what I wanted to do was find out what Alain had to do with the development of the SD2000, and he was gracious enough to come on to the channel and talk all about it and how he met Dave Simmons and just basically how this whole thing came about. Before we get on to this interview though, I'd just like to thank Jim Norman of Simmons Drums for hooking me and Alain up and making this happen. As well as I would just like to mention, if you want to help out this channel and support what I do here, follow me on Spotify. There's a link down below. I produce music under the name Demonic Sweaters and a few others, but the Demonic Sweaters link is down below. And if you like the music you hear on this channel, chances are you're gonna like the music that's there. So anyway, let's go ahead and get on with this interview. We talked for a couple of hours last night, and I think this is going to be a multi-part video, but here we go with part one. Enjoy. There you go. Nice to meet you, Alain.
Hi.
How's it going? Oh, cool setup back there. I've seen it in many videos.
The SDX, my baby.
Yeah, I bet. Those things are like crazy hard to find these days.
Yeah, if you're looking though, I have connections.
Oh, really? No, I can't afford that. Not at this juncture.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
Yeah, maybe in the future. And plus, even if I could afford it, there's like nowhere to put anything. I have so little. I don't even know how I managed to fit this one in here, like this SD2000. Like there's so much stuff crammed in this apartment. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, we wouldn't have it any other way, right? And,
oh yeah, totally.
I like your background. I love the SD2000 in the back there. I can see the symbols. And
yeah,
nicely done. Well done. Yeah, beauty.
So, well, first off, am I even saying your name right? Is it Alain?
It's Alain. Yeah, it's okay. French. But
I noticed it was spelled. Alain. Yeah, also
Alain, but right. Whatever. People call me Alain, so
okay,
whatever.
Cool. Well, Simmons SD2000. I guess that's a good place to start talking. Sure. Since I have one behind me and I know you've made several videos on these things. They are, I mean, I don't know if you saw my newest upload. Well, not newest, but the one that I did on the one that I got on YouTube. Just basically talking about that it's like a totally, I believe just underrated kit and was
absolutely
judged unfairly and just, I don't know. Yeah. So I just kind of went through all that and then showed why I think it's so cool in the video. And like now there's like people leaving comments saying like, oh, now I want one. It's so funny.
Exactly. Yeah. Popular opinion always seems to win.
Yeah. But, so how did you end up working on that project?
I reached out to Dave Simmons in 2014 because I was actually interested in developing, and releasing an electronic drum kit. And I reached out to Dave and lo and behold, we kept in contact and we eventually came up to the decision that I was going to be involved in it. So
that's really awesome, man. You just send an email or something?
Yeah. It's probably a little more convoluted than that, but without boring you to death, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I love those kind of stories, because people are always like, I don't know, like so many people are afraid to just like try stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, they'll never respond or like whatever.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, just put it out there and see what happens,
Well, the reason I called him or contacted him in the first place was because the pads in my design were hexagonal. And I thought I better do it right and reach out to him and ask basically his permission. Like, do I have your permission? And I provided him with some rude drawings of what the pads would look like. And he was rather interested in knowing how things went later on and whatnot. And as it turns out, it's quite a daunting task to do the whole thing. Very expensive.
Yeah.
And I thought I was just, basically going to build these things in my garage, handmade one by one, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, not so much. So that kind of went south, but we kept in touch, and then we were going to do some work on some of the past Simmons offerings from the back in the 80s. We were looking at maybe rejuvenating a kit in particular, which will remain nameless because we never know. But yeah, so we started working on that a little bit, and then the 2000 was basically on the horizon, and Dave figured, well, let's do some product demos and show what this baby can do. And he came over. He flew over from the UK, and we spent a week, long hours. So both of us have bags under our eyes for much of the videos, because there's a lot of work went into it, a lot of hours, and a lot of yeah, the usual thing when you're demoing a product. So we went through it and basically just gave it our touch, if you will.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I mean, I love the kit, and I mean, it's Simmons. I don't know if you have how much you talked to them about what I've been doing with them, but like they sent me a while ago, I guess it's like a year ago or something. They sent me the SD1250.
Yeah.
And when they were sending it, I was like, well, I don't really have space for it, because at the time I really didn't at home, but I was like, maybe I could set it up, in the school where I teach. They're like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. And so they sent it to me there, and I set it up there, and I did several videos for it over there, but it's different with it being over there than being here. So I was only able to really scratch the surface. You know what I mean? Because I'm not sitting right next to it. Like, well, I am, but I'm busy teaching, the entire day. But like, so that's why at first I was like, well, I want to bring that kit back over here. I was thinking that, and really get to know the thing. This was just fairly recently, but then I was like, well, the kids really like it, because they do. I mean, actually the kids really love playing that thing. And so I was like, well, maybe I'll just look for another one, and then I happened upon this SD2000 on Craigslist, and I was like, oh man, those things, I know that those are very similar, and I've always really wanted one of those. So I drove out to Long Island and picked it up. But just having this here for a few days, I really was able to dive in there and see, like, I think the long-winded point here is that I think that these modules, this generation of modules they're very different than your Roland style, your Elisa style, your, all these other type of drum modules that people are used to programming. So there's a lot of hidden stuff in there that I think, unless you're familiar with synthesizers, you're not going to really know. Your average, drummer guy, who's just cycling through samples and, messing with the pitch, that's 90% of what, they have mic emulators and stuff like that, but it's just a totally different concept.
Yeah.
And once I was able to play with that, I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. Like, and I think like that, people they're so immersed in this, like, electronic drums just supposed to be a replacement for acoustic drums, that a lot of people aren't even really exploring that so much. But since the SD1250 is still out, that's why I want to keep making more videos like this, so people can, kind of realize how freaking cool that thing actually is before they stop making it, like, and like just go all the way to like just, standard, like everybody else, because it's actually quite unique.
It back to the 2000, the capabilities it has to be creative as a drummer, but not just a drummer. Like I was telling you, you can actually contribute melodically,
Mm-hmm.
and the drummer can actually become more than just being a beatbox in a
Yep.
group. I know that that doesn't necessarily lend itself well to the majority of gigs that drummers have
Mm-hmm.
or obtain, because 9 times out of 10 you're playing, Brown Eyed Girl in a cover band, that sort of thing. So the last thing you want to do is
Proud
start.
Mary.
Exactly. So the last thing you want to do is start going off and competing with the guitarist for a solo. But yeah, no, these machines have some serious balls to them, like, for lack of a better word. Tons of capabilities, tons of creative editing possibilities. The functionality in these things is far beyond, I think, what the average expectations are of
Mm-hmm.
an e-kit of that price, in that price range.
Yep.
Um, and for like someone like yourself, who does spend the time and actually learn the device, and uh, learn its nuances, learn its personality,
Right.
then you can glean quite a surprising amount of result from the machine. And the modules are they're a little involved, and
Yeah, they are.
that's classic Simmons,
Yep.
right? Everything Simmons has released is a little involved. You
Mm-hmm.
have to spend the time to learn it, and
Yep.
you can't. Well, you could just plug it in and play, but I mean, you'd be doing yourself a disservice by just not exploring its capabilities.
Yeah.
And the 2000, the 1200, I've got the 1200 here.
Mm-hmm.
I There's a lot of me in the 1200 as well. We did a lot of tweaking on the kits and the cymbals and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. Um, but they offer quite a lot for drummers to basically to be very, very um, able to provide whatever's required of them for any specific or custom gig, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
The aspect that I haven't, and I've seen your videos like where you really dive into this, but the aspect that I really haven't yet is the sample import and assigning various samples to, you can have like velocity controlled samples as well as, do all the other filters and attack, synth type settings and stuff like that as
Right.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the reason why I haven't is because, well, number one, for some reason on the 1250, I can't get it to work. Like I just cannot get a sample to go in there. I don't know. Like maybe it needs a firmware update or something, but it's just silent every time I try to import.
Yeah. The latest firmware will help. Also, there might be something preventing it from importing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure what the 1250 has for security or well, security, for user ability. It should
It's
be
the
wide open.
same. It's the well,
Yeah.
it's the memory protect on or off. But actually, I
Yeah.
should check if that's on because maybe that
Yeah.
does block it.
Maybe it might. So there might be something that's preventing the
Yeah.
sample from
Well,
taking.
so here I got it to work on the 2000,
Mhm.
but the odd thing is, and when you mentioned in your email that there's quirks, or like I don't know if you
Oh
use
yeah.
that phrase, but like you know, but it did something a little strange. And what happened is first I updated the firmware, and after I updated the firmware, everything was good. And then I restored my backed up kits. And then the
Mhm.
filter was all weird. Like it was
Yeah.
like all completely out of whack. And like every
Yeah.
filter was turned up on like everything. And so I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's weird. So I did a factory reset again and didn't import my kits, but then tried to import a sample and it did the same thing.
Yeah.
So do you have an
I
idea about that?
I know exactly. I know exactly what happened there, because of the number of firmware releases over the course of the dev period, and then the after post release. There were quite a few firmware releases that you basically had to have prior to installing the next one, so to speak. You can't just go from an older one 4 generations back to the recent one. You actually have to go through all of them, upload them, install them. You sort of have to do it all individual. And then by that time, your filter will be all proper. Your settings will be all sorted out. That we changed the filtering a little bit halfway through.
Yeah, I noticed, because when I updated, it was different.
Yeah, it's better. Like the filters actually function in a more, for lack of a better word, more realistic fashion now. They're more accurate to what you'd expect to find in a synthesizer. So they behave, they respond, and the parameters are such that they're proper, true filters. Whereas before they were a little weird.
Well, see, the thing is, there's only one firmware you can download on the website now.
Now, yeah, but if you talk nice, I can give you all the previous firmwares.
Yeah, I mean, would I be able to go back now though? And
yeah, good question. I don't know what they make available or not. I don't know if there's an archive.
But I mean, even if I had them, what I'm saying is, since it already has the current version, would it be possible to go?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. You can roll back. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Basically, you just install the previous version if you want, and go back as far as you want. Again, systematically.
What's odd though is it only, like, when you import samples. Why would it do that when you import samples? That's what I don't get. Like, that's odd.
Well, it depends on the firmware. It depends on a lot of things. From what I'm gathering is that it's probably very confused. It probably needs a reset. Probably needs just an absolute refresh to the firmware. And the system just probably needs to be reset.
Well, if you have any, I suppose I could ask the guys too, but like, yeah.
I can definitely provide you with the instructions on how to do that.
Oh, okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because I want to get in there and really explore the sampling. Importing samples and trying some of that. I mean, I only did it the one time, so I was like, I was afraid to do it again because I didn't want to lose all my stuff.
Yeah, no, I know that thing inside out, like the back of my hand. So I know how she behaves. Yeah. and when it's showing certain symptoms or when it's doing certain things, chances are, you have to sort of reset it and start over.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's all right.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of those things where, like, I feel like that's a good thing that we're here doing this, because the other people that have this, and like are looking this up in the future or whatever, then they'll know that as well.
Yeah, because it's one of those, a really, really unique beast. The looks, everything about it's very unique. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised that it didn't do better when it was released.
Me too. I thought it was awesome when it came out.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's an awesome looking kit. There are always the traditionalists who prefer the round shells, and I talk to drummers all the time that can't understand how I would take something like this, the hexagonals. I'll just flip you over here. Why would I dare take that up on stage, right?
Yeah, that's such an awesome setup. The mix of the old and new.
Yeah, it's got everything. It's got the SDS9 pads and the SD2000 pads. I've never thought anything but to take Simmons up on stage, because they are so unique.
Right.
And the last thing I want them to do is sound like acoustic drums. I want them to sound different. I want to trigger barn doors being struck. I want to trigger sounds, that you can't get from an acoustic drum. Why would I want an acoustic drum on stage?
Yeah.
So plus the look, right? The look is very unique, and it on stage as an entertainer, you're there to entertain. So whatever you can bring to the stage to make the user experience. I'm in IT, so
well, they're users. They're music users.
anyone who comes out to the shows or whatever, it's mind candy as well. It's eye candy, mind candy, whatever. So it's just part of the little everything that goes that basically compiles together to put up to, how would I say this, to deliver the show, and a good looking show, whatever, right? Unique.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I mean, they just stand out, and that's good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you want them to stand out. Like, one of the things I hate about playing in New York City, being a musician in New York City, you're always using house kits, because like it's impossible to move anything here. And I mean, I've done it, but for the most part, places want you to play their drums, which are always pieces of crap. Like, always. And then like you're limited to just bringing your snare drum and your cymbals and your bass drum pedal. And then it's just like, it just takes away all that. Like, when I was younger and I didn't live in New York City, I would go see shows, and like, one of the coolest things about a band is like, all right, let's check out their setup, see what they've got up on stage and what they're using, that's, but if it's just the same old boring crap every time, that takes away like half of the experience.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree. And that's, the 2000 looks great on stage. I mean, I've taken her up on stage several times, the full kit even. And our drummer, we have two drummers in the band, and he actually plays the 2000.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool.
Are you worried ever when you take a rare piece of gear like out to a gig? I mean, I'm sure you are. I get stressed out a little bit.
I guard it with my life, and I'm very picky insofar as who can actually go near the things.
Yeah.
But I don't. The 2000 will go out. The nines will go out. The SDS nines will go out. The rig, as far as the rig goes, the MTM will go out. The TMI will go out. But beyond that, I think the majority of it will stay in the safe confines of the studio.
Yeah.
SDX will never see the light of day. She's permanently locked in the secured studio, and that's where she's gonna stay. And then the rest of it's probably gonna stay there too as well. Got some pretty prized stuff here that is not gonna see the stage.
I don't know a whole lot about the SDX. I mean, I've watched some videos on it. And they look amazing, and they sound insanely like real. Like, I mean, not to use the realistic word, but they can sound very realistic.
Absolutely. There are 16-bit samples back in the day. Back in 1987, we were triggering 16-bit samples.
That's crazy.
on multi-zone velocity sensitive pads. Like,
what are all the specs? You want to run through all the specs of it? Just for the people that don't know, I don't really know either. I'd like.
The SDX, it's basically that guy over there. I'll get out of the way, but it's basically. I don't know if you can see the console. I don't really want to move my laptop.
It's good. We can see it.
Network cables are probably going to fall out, but the console is very, very large. It's very large and very heavy.
Is it the thing that's like in the rack box behind the?
Actually, that's just an external rack with a bunch of gear in it, a bunch more Simmons gear. It's chock full of Simmons. There's a couple SDS7s in there, and another MTM, another TMI, and there's the SVE module. I don't know if you can see it on this side. There's a rack there.
I can see the rack, but it's a little blurry, and I'm not exactly sure which one I'm looking for either. If
another SDS.
I think I can see it. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. There's another SDS7 in there. But getting back to the SDX, so basically, what drives the thing is a processor with 4 megs of RAM, if you can believe that, maxed out. But that was huge, like 1987, right? That was absolutely cutting edge.
And it's almost like a computer a lot.
It is. It's a Mac. For lack of a better word, it's a Mac. It's a very old, very early generation Mac. But again, don't quote me on that. It's similar to how it functions with the trackball. The operating system it's got a very Mac feel to it. It's got it's got a Motorola display that's basically embedded into the case, into the cabinet, which adds more weight to it. it's one of those old what do they call them?
CRT.
Like yeah, it's a CRT, but it's almost like a tech bench CRT. Like technicians would run oscilloscopes on it and
Uh-huh.
stuff. It's like I believe it's a Motorola, anyway, something like that. And then the pads are zone sensitive, zone intelligent, meaning where you hit, where you strike the pad will tell the computer or tell the sampler what sample to play, essentially. So
It's like
it's a
positional
zone.
sensing,
Exactly.
like
So yeah,
Roland
yeah,
does
yeah,
now.
for sure. So
Like,
yeah. So the zones are positionally well, the pads actually, just the like the drum pads, quote
uh,
unquote. The cymbals are multi-sensitive as well. Plus the rim, they have a rim choke function, so you can actually choke the rim in 1987.
wow.
Okay,
And those
so
ones kind of move too, right?
they do. Yeah, I'll just
They
go
swivel
sneaky.
a little bit. Yeah, those are really cool. I've seen those. Oh wait, let me stop talking so they can see it. Hold on. Try that again.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, they pivot. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yep.
Yeah. So if it's struck, it pivots. It behaves a lot like a real cymbal.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really cool.
yeah. Yeah, it was way ahead. It still is by today's standards, very usable. It's I wouldn't hesitate to, if it wasn't 32 years old, or however old it is now. I would probably want to take this thing out on stage
Right.
because it is that good.
And plus the
Yeah,
look of it. I mean, the yellow hexagons just look so
yeah,
cool.
it's pretty stunning. Yeah, it's got an absolute presence to it for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Did you
yeah.
see the Weekend on SNL? You know the Weekend, the guy he does like it's like a pop singer. But he was on SNL and his drummer had a full Simmons setup,
Nice.
80s
Yeah.
one, an
Oh,
80s.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it looked really cool. It was a white one
Yeah.
he had. And he's
Yeah.
really using it
There's,
too, I think. I mean, it sounds like he was really using it.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, a lot
You
of
never
the
know with
80s,
pop stars.
yeah, a lot of the 80s guys, they just had them for the look, right?
Yeah.
But no, they're usable to this day. I mean, I would not hesitate to put this thing up against
Yeah.
anything that Roland puts out now.
Well, Alex
Um,
Van Halen used to hide his. He would play them and fake that he was
yeah.
using acoustics.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, that goes to, why would you want to play those on stage? Why would
Yeah.
you want to play those out on stage? But they sound so good.
Yeah.
Nick Mason of Pink Floyd had an SDS7, and one of their tours, I can't remember which one now, but they had another drummer who's a percussionist, uh, was set up in this cage, and he had an SDS7 in it, and um, I was always wondering, like, where are you getting these sounds from? Like, holy crap, it sounds amazing. Sure enough, if you catch the video at just at the right time, you can actually see his racked equipment.
Oh wow.
And yeah,
So
um,
is the SDF7, is that an analog or is that a digital one?
both actually.
Oh,
It's a combination of the
oh
two.
that's
It's analog digital.
oh,
So
neat.
it's the migration of the predecessor, the SDS5, which was all analog.
Uh-huh.
And then the next one up was the SDS7 that incorporated the analog characteristics and components and added digital as well. So you're basically triggering EPROMs. So you would blow EPROMs, meaning you would sample sounds and upload them to an EPROM using a blower. And then you unplug that EPROM from the blower, plug it into the SDS7 module in one of the cards, slide the card in, and that particular pad or that channel would play that particular sound, and that sound was editable as well. So all the controls were for both the analog and the digital. So it's massive. Like it's absolutely phenomenal what you can do with the thing. It's grungy. I love it. It's absolute dirt, but it's beautiful. I just absolutely love the seven.
I think when I was like, I don't know, in my teens, I was listening to, of course, Neil Peart, of
Right.
course, and then Bill Bruford, Alex Van Halen.
Yeah.
And like a lot of the guys, like look back on it, were playing Simmons, a lot of
Yeah.
those guys. And like
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't even really think about it, I was just like, they're
Mhm.
just playing drums, I didn't really
Yeah.
think about the synth toms, they just seemed like more drums to me. You know, it was like, it wasn't like this, because it was the 80s and that's just how things, you know, that's just how they were. You know, like you didn't like overanalyze it, especially when you're a kid. You're like, oh, that's just drums, you know, that's how some drums sound, you know. But now it's like people go back and they hear those Simmons sounds, they're like, wow, those things sound so weird, you know. But you know, that's just the synth tom sound, you know.
Yeah, and it's been replicated, or you know, it's been done ad nauseum. You know, we've heard so many different renditions of, you know, them coming close to the originals. But once you hear the original, once you actually play on an actual Simmons analog kit, you know right away that you're playing an analog kit, a Simmons analog kit, because they're just so they have something about them that
I'm sure
the imitators don't have, or they fall short. I will say though, the Alain Labs SVSX or VSDX, the software, the
I got that
plugin,
too.
VSD, yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's
pretty
really cool.
impressive. Even to the point where the uncertainty of what the thing is going to do, it's there, like it's in the plugin. It's amazing work, absolutely amazing work.
It's pretty great. I haven't been able to spend that much time with it yet, but it's on my list. I mean, I played with it a little bit, but it's really enough to really be good. Like blown away by it for sure.
Yeah, it's really good, really good. Yeah.
And like that was actually playing with that really got me to, when I was doing that and I was noticing how you could do the variations in pitch and filter based on dynamics. And then when I realized that the SD2000 and the 1250 and 1200 could do that too, I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's kind of like those, like the old kits where it has this reaction to, you know, it's like, it feels like unpredictable, like you said, like, you're like, oh, whoa, it's going to do that now, you know, like, which is really cool. You know, it's like, it's cool to be surprised by a sound, you know?
Yeah. One of the things that we were working on with the kit was to randomize it. Because as you know, the electronic kits tend to sound very machine gun like, machine gunny. So within the availability, the parameters, and the functionality that the units had, we had to basically get creative insofar as how are we going to basically randomize each strike, each subsequent drum strike to the head without it sounding, you know, as machine gun or as repetitive as it does. And we came up with some creative filtering and creative pitch, velocity to pitch, that sort of thing. Just the tiniest little amount will actually make a big difference audibly. So again, for anyone who wants to spend the time, dive into these things, you can actually make them sound pretty good.
Even if you want to do realistic sounds. I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
And like, I mean, the pitch thing, I mean, that even happens on a real drum, you know, like, because if you have like, you know, your lugs tuned differently across the snare, when you're hitting, it's going to sound different. It'll have a different pitch, you know, for sure.
And for sure. And the harder you hit a drum, the higher the pitch is going to be in it. It's just physics.
All right, that's the end of part one, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. It was a really fun talk. Stay tuned for part two in the next few days. Part two, we talked about Alan's musical project, Voice Industry, as well as what it's like to try to market music in 2022, playing live now versus the 90s, and just a lot of other stuff. So we had like a more general music discussion in the second part, and be sure to stay on the lookout for that one. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below what you think about the chat, and I'll see y'all really soon. Have a great day. Later.